Hello, Whisky Geeks, and welcome to my very first live stream. I'm a little bit nervous to be doing this live. You know, the thin veneer of professionalism that's afforded to me by being able to edit and cut things is completely gone. But hopefully you'll bear with me and this will be at least bearable. So why am I doing a live stream? As I've let come through on social media and on posts so far, I'm celebrating having hit the 1,000 subscriber milestone. We're a bit beyond that now, and been doing this for 1 year. So the channel has, I'd say it's kind of established. So I'm happy to be where I'm at, and I'm enjoying engaging with you guys, engaging with the community, which leads me on to the guys who are already in. I was keeping an eye on chat, and there were people in from quite early on. We've got Peter Wilcox and McCallum Fine and Rare in from a couple of hours ago. Christopher David, Daniel Vermaas. It's great to see all of you guys. It was interesting to see, Daniel, that you are more of an F1 guy than a football guy. You're similar to me. I was completely oblivious to the fact there was a football match on today. It's probably not the best timing, but there we are. Scrolling down more. Hi, Mick and Tony Evans. Good to see you guys. Tabitha, great to have you in. Luna Aaron, good to see you as well. I still haven't got around to your samples yet. Joe has been eyeing up the box a couple of times. I've had to tuck it away because I suggested that maybe we sit down and do that one together. Dwayne Large, great to see you. How's things going? I've been enjoying all of your posts coming up on Facebook from your Isla visit. Getting a little bit envious, to be honest. Simon Ray. I think that's about everyone. It's great to see you all in. It's exciting to have Kresimir Jelkic. I'm sorry if I've just said your name wrong, but hello to you, and Toby as well. Good to see you, Whiskey Shared, that is. So, 1 year in. It was about a year ago that I was sat one Saturday morning. Before I get into that, I haven't poured a whiskey yet. So anyone want to suggest something that you can see on my shelves for me to pour? Yeah, so about a year ago, I was sat binge watching some of Roy's content, Aquavite, and Joe kind of gave me a prod and said, why don't I do that? I think she got tired of me constantly rabbiting on about whiskey at her. I'd been chewing her ear off, and she wanted me to find someone else to constantly talk to. Got a couple of suggestions in. Springbank, Port Charlotte, and Isla, all good. The only thing I recognise is a Brookladdy. So we got a couple there for Port Charlotte and Isla, and a Springbank. I've got something interesting which ties in for later, which I'll grab. Now this is one of the whiskies which was an option for my patrons later on, one of the samples that they could have picked. This is a bottle which Phil and Deepa, when they came to visit, they picked out for me. It's an interesting concept. It's almost like a shop's infinity bottle. Cadenheads are obviously tied to Springbank, and every week or so they bring down a couple of bottles from unknown batches, top up this large vatting of Springbank whiskies, and you can only buy it in that store. So it's kind of an evolving, ever-changing batch, which is a really interesting concept. But what also makes it interesting, if you drink it from a standard-ish glass, a Glencairn or a Capita, then you get kind of like toffee crisp, the core of a crunchy chocolate bar. It's super sweet. It's really caramelly and lovely. If you drink it from these weird glasses, then it's really, really Springbank. It's quite confusing how much it changes. This is one of the best examples I have for how much these glasses can change things. A couple more in. Hi, Greg. Good to see you. Whiskey Histories 101 Force 10. Good to see you all. So, without getting too soppy, I wanted to quickly touch on just how good this community is. I am involved in a bunch of other hobbies and rubbish on YouTube, and there's always this kind of toxicity that goes, particularly with gaming and those kind of communities. it's something which I've never seen within the Whiskey Tube, as people refer to it, the Whiskey Tube community. You guys all rock. But so too do the other creators, the other guys out there. As I started, I was overwhelmed by just how receptive and friendly everyone was. I've got a list here of people that I want to give a quick shout out to because they were so welcoming and gave me a bunch of critique and helpful hints and shout outs early on all the way through to recently. So Whiskey Jason and Greg's Whiskey Guide, you guys both leapt on me really early on whilst my content was terrible, and you gave me some really important critique and engaged with me in a way that I really, really appreciated. No Nonsense Whiskey, Vin over at No Nonsense Whiskey, he gave me a shout out for my first truly geeky review. It kind of shaped the way that I do my reviews now with the flavor wheel and things. I got caught up in a deal that I found at Aldi, got carried away, bought a few of those bottles, and on the back of him putting a shout out, I think it was on Twitter, 20 or 30 subscribers jumped on board. So that really helped kickstart things as well. Captain 3D, Phil and Deeper, the guys who I managed to meet, and they gave me this bottle earlier this year. They have been a great deal of fun, and it's been really, really fun to watch how they're doing their reviews and their blind tastings and how captivated they are by whiskey and by the experience, the journey, as you'd call it, coming through from a beginner. Whiskey Shared, Toby, he is doing, again, blind tastings. He's been well established within the community, and again, my terrible content early on didn't put him off. So he's really jumped on board and jumped on board the Patreon as well, giving me some good shout outs and feedback. And then quickly, of course, there's Roy, Aquavite. He gave me a much needed push, both spurred Joe on to give me a push to actually start it, but some critique and some tips on lighting and things that really, really helped. And of course, he invited me to VPubs. Without having done that as a bit of an intro, I probably wouldn't have the balls to try and do this on my own now. Then Last Drop, Chris, and Whiskey Wims, Stuart. You guys have both also been great. So anyone else that I forgot to mention as well, really sorry. I've really, really enjoyed and really, really love being a part of this community. So I've just seen that Joe's in the chat as well. So yeah, the community is what keeps me engaged. It's what keeps me kind of pressured and accountable into actually creating content and sticking with this. So it's awesome to have you guys actually give me feedback and engage with me the way that you do. As far as I'm concerned, I'm just a guy who loves whiskey, and I'm big-headed enough to sit in front of a camera and talk about it. You guys bouncing ideas back off of me, pushing me in different directions, telling me to try things in different ways. It's so rewarding, and it helps me to grow as a whiskey enthusiast as well as a content creator. So thank you all. Hi, Matt Wilson. Good to have you in from Texas. Let's get those giveaways moving then. The first one is kind of a little bit goofy. I hope that this is not going to annoy anyone. It's intentionally a little bit silly. First thing that is up for grabs is this pair of the thistle glasses. I think they're actually called Amalfi Grappa glasses. Now, in return for this bottle of whiskey, when Captain 3D, Phil and Deeper were here, I gave them a pair of these glasses because they found it really interesting. And I haven't even drank any whiskey yet. They found it really interesting how much it affects things. So out of a standardish glass, there is that typical Springbank. It's a little bit soapy, a little bit stone. But what's layered all over this is lovely, lovely sweetness. It's quite caramelly, and it reminds me of a Crunchies chocolate bar. Really, really friendly. Which is good given that it is 56%. So you kind of get a feel for its typical Springbank goodness. It's really smooth and oily and pleasant. But you pop it into one of these glasses, And it's really, really interesting to me as a geeky person, as an engineer by trade, that the shape of glass would make that much difference. You can understand the aromas to an extent would be affected, but then as it transitions to the palate, it also changes things. It's not just a nasal experience. It's almost got a tinge of dairy, kind of soft blue cheese to it. And that kind of slate stone is really coming through. It really accentuates what makes Springbank or Campbelltown. They are a little bit awkward to drink from now. So they're not everyday drinking glasses for sure, but they are very, very interesting. Another tool to have in your whiskey box for exploring things and having a bit of fun. So a pair of these is what's up for grabs first. And like I say, I hope this isn't going to annoy anyone. This is a silly question. It's intentionally a silly question. If you don't know, and you probably don't because I had to double check myself, then guess. That's kind of the idea behind it. But the first question, and it'll be the quickest answer through to me on my screen, that will win. First question is, how many distilleries have I visited this year? We'll see who, if anyone, manages to hit. Hi, Malcolm. It's good to see you in. Getting the first few answers through. Oh, 32 from Kevin Bryan. I wish I'd been to 32. It is a few less than that. Chat's moving too fast. Oh, I see one correct answer. And I think it might be the first. Yep, that's Roy Aquavite, 14. I had to double check myself. But the list is Glengoyne, Lagavulin, Bunnahabhain, Kalila, Lafroig, Bowmore, Kilhoman, Bruichladdich, Ardbeg, Tomatin, Deanston, Aberfeldy, Balblair, and Clynelish. So, Roy, congratulations. You've won a pair of these Grappa Amalfi glasses. Ironically, I didn't know what these glasses were really called until Roy told me that they look like Grappa glasses. So, there we have it. I didn't see Joe's answer. Joe guessed 12, which is funny seeing as she was with me for a chunk of them. Oh, wow. Roy has just sent me an extremely generous super chat there. Thanks very much, Roy. It reads, huge congratulations, Ben. Every sub deserved. Thank you, Roy. You really have been both an inspiration and a massive help for me, giving me pushes in the right direction and shout outs. Got masses of respect for what you do. This is wonderful. I found it quite funny that Joe loved this whiskey out of this glass for its sweetness. And the second I poured it into one of these and I was getting that funky Campbelltown element, I fell in love with it. So it's one of those things where the glassware really changes how we're receiving it on a personal level. Yeah, that's right, Greg. Joanna Clarkson, that's Joe, my wife. So, upcoming content. I have obviously been derailed to a certain extent with Islay content ever since we visited earlier in the year. I've really, really thoroughly enjoyed revisiting that content and creating all those videos and things, but I might as well be called Islay Geek at the moment. I can't remember what the last whiskey, it was probably one of the Game of Thrones whiskeys that I touched that wasn't really Islay fixated. So the channel is kind of stuck on a rail at the moment, but I've got a conclusion planned. I've got a couple more videos that I'm going to do, a summary and a paired review, and that will be Islay bookended for me. Not that I'm not going to visit Islay, not that I'm going to avoid touching any more Islay whiskies, but I'm going to diversify a little bit and look more at Scotch on the whole. As you just heard from the list of distilleries that I have visited this year, there's some great content coming up from other things. We've got Tomatin will come up shortly. I'm hoping that that comes through and I get that one finished before the end of this year. I went up for the end of the Highland Whisky Festival. This year was the first year for the Highland Whisky Festival, and it finished with Tomatin. Now, Tomatin is a distillery that I personally love, as you can tell from all of these bottles up here that I have. And getting to do the distillery managers tour and the head distillers tour back to back with a little demo in the cooperage. It was a fantastic experience. So I've got a stack of really good footage of that one. But then on the back of that, I'm going to do some fun stuff with all those whiskies, plenty of reviews and the like. One thing that I guess I was ignorant to, but I never really thought through when I started all this, was just how much effort, how much work it can be to keep the content coming, you know, on top of a day job and having a young child. It gets chaotic, which is why things have slowed down recently. But I'm hoping we can settle into a bit more of a rhythm, and I should be able to pick things up again. Great to see Scotch for Dummies in, a couple more added. Peter Wilcox back. Oh, sorry, I saw your comment earlier, Peter, about really wanting some of these glasses. Sorry, Roy beat you to it. So, another thing that I need to do, I think, for my own sanity, is a peat reset. I need to let my palate breathe and settle after drinking for nearly 8-9 months, almost entirely Islay and peated whiskies. I think I need to take a step back and maybe for a month or so, just avoid peated whiskies. Because at the moment, I'm picking up some of the smokiest stuff, some of the heavily peated stuff, and I'm not finding it all that smoky. I think it's a good thing and a bad thing, because that's part of what has helped me to delve deeper into what brings their characteristics out. But it's also getting to the point where I don't think I'm fully appreciating a smoky whiskey or a peated whiskey for what it is. Had another super chat in from Ebhead. Thank you very much, Ebhead. Congrats on the 1K and 1 year, Ben. You're producing great content, mate. Look forward to following your channel in the years to come. Thank you very much, Ebhead. And sláinte to you as well. I still have the remainder of a little Ebhead sample of Highland Park super heavy sherry bomb, I think it was. It was one of the single casks that was available to you where you are and we can't find. I need to finish that off because it's probably going to be suffering being in that bottle on its own at the moment. So thanks very much, Ebed. Right, now, second thing I've got to give away is for my patrons. I am super lucky to have a great community, a great body of patrons who will support the channel, support me, and keep me accountable, give me a slap and a push when I need it. Super, super appreciative of them. I recently posted a trio of, is this going to work? Kind of. A trio of whiskies and asked them to pick their favorite, pick which one they would go for. So this is the first trio. So we had an Islay Barley 2011, a Balblair 2004 travel exclusive, and the Bunnahabhain Erin na Grenja. I asked them to pick which one of those, if they were going to win a sample, would they like. And they picked the Bunnahabhain Erin na Grenja. Second trio of whiskies. To be honest, I was a little surprised about that one. I would have thought of the three, I get probably most excited about the old Balblair vintage range, but the Bruichladdich Islay Barley is what I expected them to pick. So I was actually quite happy because I put the Bunnahabhain in there because I think it's a quality whiskey. I think it's something that I really enjoy. So I was excited to share. but I didn't expect them to actually go for. So I was happy to see that they had. The second trio was a Fettercairn 21-year-old cask strength that was bottled by Master of Malt. A weird whiskey, something that you probably wouldn't normally get your hands on. This is something which it's the kind of whiskey that I would normally get drawn towards and get excited by because it's honest, it's naturally presented, it shows more of the distillery in its raw state, and single casks are always more characterful, I find. So I find that one interesting. If I'm honest, it disappointed me a little bit the first few times I've drunk it, but now that the bottle has come down a decent amount and I've left it for a few months, it's doing all right. It's quite enjoyable. The second whiskey to pick was this one we've already talked about. Really quite a unique whiskey, the kind of thing that even if you get yourself to Springbank, get yourself to Campbelltown, you wouldn't get this exact one anyway. And then, of course, the third one, Tomatin Pedro Jimenez single cask. That one I was fairly certain was going to be the one to pick. The Cadenheads, the Springbank Infinity bottle, was something that I thought could pull focus, but it didn't. The Tomatin absolutely walked away with it. So the second sample is this Tomatin Pedro Jimenez single cask. Fantastic whiskey. That was a whiskey that I was saving to celebrate the birth of my firstborn with, and it didn't disappoint. Shared that with patrons as well, I think, briefly. So the third trio was a Bruichladdich Laddie Valanche. That was number 41, I think, which is Sharon Foley. But the important thing is that it's a sherry cask. I think it was 11 or 13 years old, a good age, sherry matured Bruichladdich. The second was a Lafroig single cask. That's one that I picked up at the distillery as part of the Distillers Wares tour, I think it was. Oloroso single cask. Really, really fantastic Oloroso flavors, raisiny, a bit nutty, but this lovely wisp of seaweed and Lafroig elements coming in behind it. And they were both keeping themselves in balance, but they were both equally strong. So normally you would find, you know, a sherried whiskey like that is so overwhelmingly sherry that any peat kind of takes a backseat, or the peat is so overwhelming that the sherry takes a backseat. But this one, they were both fighting each other in a really, really pleasant and enjoyable way. And then finally, the third one was the Lagavulin Isla Jazz Festival 2017 bottle. I was kind of guessing people were going to go with the Laddie Valanche, but again, I was surprised. The Lafroig is what was chosen. So there we have it. Sample of cask number 3614. So those three whiskies are what are up for grabs for my patrons. Patrons have had a little bit of a heads up that this was coming up for a while. And so they simply had to post on one of my patron posts to say that they wanted to be entered into the draw. Now, of course, if you are entering to win whiskey, you have to be of legal drinking age, and you have to be somewhere I can legally send whiskey to you. No breaking of the law. If, of course, that means getting it to you while you visit the UK at some point, we can figure something out. But all patrons needed to do was post, and if they've posted, their names have gone into this hat. So I've got a ticket in here, one ticket per post. And I'm simply going to draw it out of the hat. I will be drawing a second name. So the first name will be the winner. The second name will be a backup, just in case the winner, there's issues with shipping or whatever else. So, doing it totally blind. First name is Danny Juice. I haven't seen him on the chat, but congratulations, Danny. You've won this trio of samples. Please get in touch with me via Patreon, and I will arrange shipping those out to you. As a backup, Steve. This is Steve with no surname. I have two patrons called Steve, and this is the one that hasn't given me his surname. So you are back up in case I can't arrange anything with Danny. I've just seen a comment from Roy Aquavite. Dipping in and out of bed, Ben. I can't get my son to stay in his bed. That sounds worryingly familiar, Roy. We've had a bit of a nightmare of it tonight, getting everything set up. Joe was suddenly violently ill, and at the same time, Alfie has been going through both growth spurts and he started teething at the same time. So he's not wanting to stay in bed. So Joe, whilst not feeling great, is chasing him around and trying to keep him happy. I think I've covered everything there. Yeah, the only thing that I would say about, I've quite enjoyed this little format of giveaways, and I'm tempted to get patrons to pick whiskies like this, maybe quarterly, a couple of times a year, something like that, just because I found it quite fun to see what people would actually pick. So we'll see if that comes up. I have thought of using whiskey. I got him to sniff a, I forgot what it was. It was an islet. It was a heavily peated. I think it might have been the Lagavulin Jazz Festival. And he was genuinely intrigued and he kept pulling it closer. Likewise, I got him to sniff a bourbon and he immediately, the bottom lip curled and he bawled his eyes out. So I think already he's inherited some of my tastes there. Mark's bob on. If he's anything like me, he'd ask for another dram. So once again, I am massively grateful to all of my patrons. It's fantastic to have our own little space and some of the additional content that I can push to those guys without feeling like I have to be quite so anal, like it's scrutinized quite so thoroughly. But it's great to have them keeping me in check. So this upcoming weekend is going to be a pretty cool one for me. About 9 months back, I posted a video out of the blue, no real explanation. It was a entry for a competition that the Whisky Experience in Edinburgh were doing, and I won it. So part of what I won was a weekend away to Edinburgh. It was 2 nights stay in the Balmoral. It was a Scotch tasting at their Scotch bar. If you Google it, if you look up their Scotch bar, it's fancy stuff. Most of the whiskies are kept behind lock and key. You know, this is premium Scotch. A blend your own experience at the Scotch Whisky Experience up near the castle, and Taste of Scotland tour, which ends with this lovely looking 3-course dinner, which is sampling different cuisines from across Scotland. So I am going to have a cracking weekend, which just so happens to coincide with my birthday. I'm turning old. It's a big one. It's another little milestone. So super looking forward to that whole weekend, getting to spend time with Joe, with my family. My parents are coming up with us. They're going to help look after Alfie whilst we're doing the experiences. It's going to be really, really, really cool. Hopefully take away the sting of becoming old. We'll see. But I will, of course, be taking my camera so that I can record it all, record chunks of it anyway, and put something together to share with you guys, share the experience. I think the blending experience in particular should be really good fun. You're very kind, Tabitha and Daniel, but I'm afraid McCallan Fine and Rare, the Whiskey Doc, he is correct. 3 decades. So yeah, hopefully I'll have some content to put together. It'll probably be quite vloggy, but people don't seem to mind that. I'll try and keep a whiskey focus. We'll do the tasting in the Scotch bar. and the blending experience, I think, should be really, really cool. The kind of thing that you guys would be interested in. But on the back of that, I'm hoping I pick up some tips on the blending side of things, because I've been meddling myself. There's a couple of whiskies. I've got ideas for a series that I'm going to do in the new year. A couple of whiskies that I'm trying to blend away, hide the unmentionable elements, the off notes, by masking them with other whiskies that I also wouldn't mind sacrificing. And so trying to come up with a blend that is better than the sum of its parts. So I'm hoping I pick up some tips and put together some interesting content there. It'll either go terribly and it'll be entertaining, or it'll go okay and I'll be able to share some recipes with you guys that maybe will help you get rid of your bottle of Dalmore 12. Joe's being mean to me. Joe's saying, ha ha ha, 18, ha 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 ha. Yeah, she likes to rub it in my face that I'm older than her. Greg, good shout. Get yourself a 30-year-old whiskey to taste. I was thinking about doing the exact same thing. I saw a bottle from Signatory that I quite liked the look of. And as I was gearing up to order it, I actually got some fairly bad news to do with my job. I've been looking for a new job for a few weeks now, and that kind of put a hiatus on any spending. So I haven't got anything, although I've got an amazing selection of whiskies already to pick from. So I may just nominate one of the many other bottles that I'm yet to open and use that as a celebratory dram. I've got to take something to Edinburgh with me, take something to share with my dad and Joe and my mum if she'll join in. But that Signatory bottle that I was eyeing up was a 30-year-old. I've got a lot to thank this whiskey for. So I know Roy's covered this in one of his recycled reviews. And although I suppose we share, there's a certain overlap in our opinion of it, but I like it more, I think. I tasted this one at the distillery, and it's one of the ones that I picked up whilst there. But what I've really got to thank this whiskey for is opening my eyes to Bruichladdich wine matured and Bruichladdich European wood aged. Because whilst this one is good and I really enjoy it, the MRC and the MC01s that I bought on the back of it whilst I was sipping this one, I got super excited and I was like, what else have they done in this kind of cask maturation? I ordered those and they're wow whiskies. They're whiskies that have really settled well with me. Toby's just commented with a good suggestion. Haven't you got any of the Aldi bottles left? I do actually. I do. I'm not sure. So the Aldi whiskey was last year's Christmas whiskey. They found a batch of 30-year-olds. Well, it was a vintage. So it was a 1988 vintage. It was either 30 or 29 years old. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than I possibly should, which is why I went and bought spare bottles. But I don't quite see it as a celebration whiskey. You know, whilst that is a very enjoyable whiskey, I would put it up against maybe some 8 or 10-year-old from the Integrity distilleries that we know and love, who are putting out really, really quality stuff. So, you know, age statement it was a nice gimmick to have a 30-year-old for my 30th birthday, but it's not everything for me. The quality whiskies from younger stock, good distilleries, I think can walk all over it. Good to see you in, Peter Ikin. Sorry for being late. Congrats, champ, on the subscribers. Thanks very much, Peter. See, there's something about the spirit characteristic of Port Charlotte, what they call this ozone element, that, you know, it was rich, it was pungent in their stills house. But it really helps to pull out a load of the the nuttiness and the spice of European wood, I find. And so the combination of the two just goes together really, really well. I was, Toby's just commented again saying he's only joking, it's not a celebratory dram. I was really interested to hear what your thoughts on that whiskey were, Toby, after I heard that you'd also found a bottle. Were you one of the ones who found it for £16 rather than 40? I mean, £16 for a 30-year-old whiskey, either way, is amazing going. So that brings us on to item number 3. This is the big prize, really. So this was supposed to be an advent calendar. I thought it was quite a nice way to wrap up my first year, given that the way the channel started with those horrible videos, the first 20 odd videos, were me going through a Douglas Lang advent calendar that Joe got me. And it was just tying a bow on it quite nicely by returning with, this is a Whisky Geek advent calendar. Unfortunately, I was procrastinating. I didn't get around to finishing this or doing this stream anywhere near quick enough. So you're a few days behind. You know, by the time it gets to you, it might be 4, 5, 6 drams behind, but you'd be free to use it as an advent calendar if you wished. So there is 24 whiskies here. These are all whiskies that I am excited to share. They're all whiskies that through the life of my channel, essentially, I've picked up, I've explored, and I've enjoyed. And just to pick a couple of examples, if anyone wants to suggest a number between 0 and 25, numbers 1 to 24, suggest a number. I'll pull one out and tell you what it is, just so you can get an idea of what kind of whiskies there are here. And there are a couple in here that aren't expensive. They maybe won't get people excited, but I enjoyed them for one reason or another. So first one, Mendip Fox suggested 13. We've got Aaron Malt 14-year-old, number 13. So that one, I think that was Roy's Malt of the Year last year. He did have some concerns over possible batch discrepancy, but the bottle that I picked up, I thought was truly fantastic. It was on the back of having tried the 21-year-old, which I think I mentioned yesterday. It doesn't quite match the 21-year-old, but it's not far behind, given that it's 7 years behind. It was really, really good. Ooh. Let's pick another number here. Ooh. Second number I picked was also 13. There we go. What's number 8? Aha. Port Charlotte MRC 01. So this is one of the whiskies I was just talking about. That whiskey, my patrons got to see some outtakes of me trying to review that, because it literally took my breath away. I think it took me 3 or 4 attempts just to speak after sampling it and actually say anything coherent. That whiskey I absolutely love, but I kind of love it for Stockholm Syndrome type reasons. It kicks your butt and I enjoy it. So maybe this is one that other people will pick up and go, this is too much. But adding water to it did good things as well. It is worth mentioning maybe that half of these, roughly half of them, are peated, which, you know, building on what I was saying earlier about the channel having been derailed with peated whiskies, it kind of makes sense. But about half of them are peated whiskies, so it's flipping in and out. And we've got another suggestion there, number 3, Bunnahabhain Erin na Grenja. So already talked about that one. Another whiskey which I thoroughly enjoyed. I want a third one, that is number 7 from Peter Wilcox. Lefroy Distillery exclusive Oloroso cask. That's another one that I've already talked about. Oh well. So again, we're doing quick draw. First to answer a Relatively easy question this time. It's intentionally I've picked this question because it should be someone who has been watching the channel who will know this relatively easily. Now I'm expecting an answer as a word, no numerics, and obviously it's the first one to answer. So the question simply is, what month did I visit Isla? Let's see. Who, if anyone, knows this off the top of their head? Roy, did you happen to see who answered second? Whoa, my chat just leaped. Here we go. We got February, afraid not. September, nope. Ooh. Mendip Fox come in with March. That is correct, Mendip Fox. It was Mendip Fox that suggested whilst I was at Lafroig, I picked up the Cask Strength 10-year-old. Yet to open that one, but I am looking forward to it. So congratulations, Mendip Fox. Joe, you are not allowed to win this. You know you're not allowed to win this, which means that Peter Wilcox got the second. I'll take a quick note of that. So Peter, you are back up if there are issues with shipping this to Mendip Fox. Has Roy chimed in? No. Okay. So not sure what to do about those glasses then. I don't know whether my chat history goes far enough back, does it? No, I've completely lost that. I didn't see who was second. I'll try and dig it out, and if I can't find who was second, Peter Wilcox, can do. I can send... Yeah. I saw that Peter was commenting earlier that he was really keen to get his hands on them. So, Roy, as you won them, thank you for digging me out of a hole there. You've nominated Peter Wilcox for the glasses. Hi, Eric. Good to see you in. He's saying, I brought home some peat from Lafroig and seashells from Makia Bay. So I've got a piece of Isla in my home. That's quite cool. I've got flakes from Cask Char from Lafroig. I've got barley from Lagavulin. I went around and took a sly nab of bits here and there. Amusingly, I saw, I think she was Dutch, maybe. There was an older lady walking around, and she just very blatantly scooped up a whole handful of Octomore malt and dumped it in her coat pocket. She was quite keen on that. Joe's just commented she checked back. No one else guessed 14 distilleries, so it works perfectly that Peter would get these glasses. So that pretty much sums my plan for this live stream up. I do really enjoy this Port Charlotte. So thank you all for joining me for this and joining me on the channel, supporting the channel, viewing my stuff and commenting. It's great fun. Plan to stick around for as long as I can. Hopefully pick up the pace a little bit in the new year. Sláinte.